Well, hello, I'm Vera Baird, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Northumbria, and I understand you're having a conference to look at refreshing the way you deal with, in particular, domestic violence, and that you feel it would be helpful to have some outside voices as to what's being done in other places. And so let me tell you one or two of the things that we've done here in Northumbria. And let me say this, that if you come to some great new conclusions during your deliberations, please pass them on to me, because I think it's important for us all to exchange good practice. So when I came into office, as Tim Passmore, your own Police and Crime Commissioner, did in November 2012, I had the same obligation as him, which is to find out what the public wanted the police to do. Their priorities in Northumbria included domestic and sexual abuse. They were a high priority. Now, I got together with my two neighbouring Police and Crime Commissioners who'd got a similar priority. So we now have a regional strategy, all three of us working together to tackle sexual and domestic abuse. Of course, it applies to men as well as women, but the thrust of it is a violence against women and girls strategy that we've drawn together, because there is a whole kind of cluster or syndrome, as you might call it, of kinds of abuse that apply most significantly to women, though we never do forget that men need support too, and we give men support. But rape, domestic violence, trafficking, all of the honour-based violence type crimes, forced marriage, female genital mutilation, and different kinds of sexual exploitation are all primarily, after 70 or 80%, about women. So I would urge you, if you are looking at domestic violence, cast your net wider and look at all of those related issues. For instance, if there is very rarely a case of domestic abuse which doesn't include rape, if it's a man on a woman, because that is just part and parcel. If you're going to abuse your partner, it is the case that the myths that surround rape, that if somebody's raped, they will report it immediately, and the myths that surround domestic abuse, that if it really is as bad as she's saying, she'd have left him by now, have a great resemblance. So it is well worth working on all of them together, in my view. So we have no more money than Tim Passmore. Indeed, I think we've probably got less in the police here, but we have to work in two distinct planes. Therefore, one is core policing, and the other is to use our profile as police and crime commissioners to get the public involved with tackling what is an endemic set of crimes and bad incidents. So if we look at one of the things we've done in core policing here, we started a pilot in a part of Sunderland which was about domestic violence. Since I came, I've said that every police officer who's called to a 999 call about domestic violence should leave behind, whatever the outcome, whether an offence is committed, whether a prosecution is wanted, or if neither of them has occurred, should always leave behind a card for the local refuge service so that the woman can seek help if she wants it. We only got about 1% of take-up by that method. So what we piloted was sending out a refuge worker actually with the officer on the 999 call. So the officer will respond and go into solve whatever is happening there. If it's a heated situation, do that, and then in will come the refuge outreach worker and have immediate access to the victim, and will be able to say, here we are, I don't know what you want. Do you want to leave now? Have you even appreciated its domestic abuse? You can be anywhere on a spectrum of that kind, but you're not on your own anymore. We understand this issue. Come to us anytime you like. And then whatever criminal justice outcome follows is one thing, but she has got through the perhaps cumbersome process of calling the police, but she's got contact with people who can help her. And we have found that by that method, in that pilot, we got 55% of people who'd called 999 coming at some point to the refuge outreach worker and seeking help. And importantly, of that 55% of people, only one person had ever been in touch with the refuge before. So these were all new contacts that wouldn't have been got and would have been given help in any other way. The police feel their risk assessments are better because they're out with an experienced domestic violence worker. Some of them have been in this role for 30 years. And other officers who are not on emergency calls with the worker nonetheless have been given access to such a person so that they can do their risk assessments and they can do their action plans with some expert input if they want to do that. We were lucky enough to get some money from a Home Office fund to expand that, so we now have a system where at peak times, which are Friday and Saturday nights essentially, in peak places, which we have found, we do now have a system where a refuge worker goes out on 999 calls full-time, as it were, and permanently. That is a core policing thing that we think is new, and it seems to us to be very effective. Turning to how we've tried to engage the public in this whole issue, we have decided that a very key place for people who might look for help to go to is their workplace. If you are being persecuted at home and there's no help to be got from there, you may have friends at work to whom you can talk, or you may even go to work in distress and they may see you. But will you speak? It seems to be nothing to do with the workplace. We have now got a lot of employers who've agreed that they'll set out a policy in their workplace. It will be printed, it will be published, and it will be promoted to say, in essence, though of course it's got lots of paragraphs, in essence, we understand that we might be a safe haven for you. We understand that you might need some help tackling this issue. And whatever you ask for, we will be sympathetic. So, for instance, we've found that occasionally a domestic violence perpetrator will try to email his partner at work. She can block off him accessing her own email. Now she can ask her employer, if it's a person who signed up to that strategy, to block off her email at work. A photograph of him in case he comes into reception so the receptionist could know about it. And even we had one person who was suffering very badly from a very persistent perpetrator, and in order to get rid of that problem, which was very persistent and growing in gravity, she was given lots of time off work by her employer, who colluded with her. And one day she didn't go to that branch of that particular bank in her town. She went to a branch 200 miles away because that's what they'd organised between them. So she disappeared, and he never knew where she was, and neither did anybody at work, so he couldn't come in and bully them into saying where she was. She thinks that that saved her life. So we think that that is very helpful, and it's important that those workplace policies don't just lie on a shelf, that they're living. And so we've set up a system of champions who are prepared to be badged, not literally, but known as people who've had some rudimentary training in how to deal with a disclosure about abuse sympathetically and where to pass the person on to so that they can get better help. And we have a network of those champions who meet and therefore get support from each other, and they are trained through that network. And we have got somewhere in the region of 300 of those in a great range of workplaces, making sure that the workplace policy is a live document and can be of use. And there have been some very significant disclosures and significant givings of assistance through that system. Many of the public sector authorities, Newcastle City Council, a number of the others, and we've also got a very big shopping precinct in Newcastle called the Eldon Centre. The people who run that they have taken on this workplace policy. We are hopeful of a number of local businesses. We've got quite a few of those actually, and we're hopeful that a number of national ones will take it on too. And every time there is such a policy, every time there is a bunch of champions in the workplace, of course we are advancing the public's understanding of the dynamics of this, so that we have now, we hope, although it's only small steps, we have, I think, fewer people who are going to say, well, why didn't she leave him? Because more and more people have had something to do with somebody who's a champion who says, well, I know why she wouldn't leave him. It would be because he'd intimidated her in the way that all of us who are involved with domestic violence know does occur. So I feel that this is also promoting the issue and making it easier for members of the public to offer help to victims if they should come across one. So a couple of, I think, key planks of our working with the police to improve them and improve their performance, and working with the public to generate a better public atmosphere about this, to try and stamp it out for the next generation at the same time as giving some immediate help. You, I guess, will have ideas which are just as good and may even be better. I hope you have a very successful conference and that this short contribution has been of use.